The iron chain clattered against the concrete floor as I knelt beside him for the final time. 3 months. 92 days of trying to break him. 92 days of hoping that the Stockholm Syndrome would finally take root, that the hatred in his eyes would soften into something else, something I could live with, something I could call love. Owen looked up at me, and even now, even after everything I had done, I still loved him. I loved him with a desperate, consuming obsession that had devoured every other part of me. I loved him the way a drowning person loves air, the way a starving person loves bread, the way a person who has nothing else loves the one thing they cannot have. His wrists were raw from the shackles. His legs had healed crooked after I broke them. I had done it myself, a clean break with a heavy steel pipe, because I needed him helpless. I needed him to need me. I needed him to understand that I was the only person in the world who would ever care for him, the only person who would ever keep him safe, the only person who could ever love him. I had been wrong. I had been so wrong. "I'm setting you free," I said, my voice barely a whisper. I fumbled with the lock, my fingers trembling, my eyes blurry with unshed tears. "I'm sorry, Owen. I'm so sorry." He didn't respond. He just watched me with those hollow eyes, the same eyes that had once sparkled with warmth and affection. That I had killed that warmth, that I had killed that affection. I had killed the brother who had loved me, and in his place was this shell, this shadow, this ghost. The chain fell away. I unlocked the shackles from his wrists and ankles. I helped him stand, supporting his weight as he took his first steps in 3 months. He was weak, trembling, but he was standing. "Don't hate me," I pleaded, the tears finally spilling down my cheeks. "Please, Owen, don't hate me. I just wanted you to stay. I just wanted you to never leave me. Did I love you? I love you so much it's destroying me." He looked at me, and for a moment, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Not forgiveness, not love, but something else. Something cold and calculating that I didn't recognize. "I don't hate you," he said, his voice hoarse from disuse. "I could never hate you." I collapsed into his arms, sobbing, grateful, relieved. He held me for a moment, his hands gentle on my back, and then he pushed me away, turned, and walked out of the basement. He walked out of my life without looking back. I let him go, because I loved him, because I knew that keeping him any longer would destroy whatever was left of his soul. I didn't know that I had already destroyed it. I didn't know that he would come back. I didn't know that the nightmare was only beginning. Hashtag Chapter 1, The Fall. Objective commentary. The Observer's Voice. My name is Dr. Sarah Chund, and I am a psychiatrist, and I have been treating patients with obsessive-compulsive disorders, personality disorders, and trauma-related conditions for over 20 years. I have seen the depths of human depravity, the heights of human resilience, and everything in between. But I have never seen anything like Lucinda Vance. Lucinda was my patient for 6 months after she was institutionalized following the discovery of her brother's captivity. When I first met her, she was a broken shell of a person, thin, hollow-eyed, consumed by guilt and shame. She had done something terrible, something unforgivable, and she was drowning in the aftermath. But I was not the first person to see her suffering. I was not the first person to offer her compassion. I was just the one who was there when the full truth finally came out. She told me everything, the obsession, the captivity, the abuse. She told me about breaking Owen's legs, about forcing him to call her master, about the bruises and the scars and the moments of hatred that had torn them both apart. And she told me about the day she had set him free, the day she had finally realized that her love had become a poison, and that the only way to save him was to let him go. She was remorseful. She was contrite. She was determined to make amends. She just didn't know that her brother had already made his own plans. The months after Owen's escape were the hardest of my life. I threw myself into my studies, my work, my attempt to rebuild the person I had been before the obsession had consumed me. Did I went to therapy? Did I took my medication? I apologized to everyone I had hurt, starting with Owen's friends, his colleagues, the people who had been caught in the crossfire of my madness. I wrote letters to Owen. Hundreds of letters pouring out my guilt, my remorse, my desperate hope that he could one day forgive me. I never sent them. I knew I didn't have the right. I knew that any contact from me would only cause him more pain. I tried to move on, and I tried to find a new purpose, a new life, a new identity that wasn't defined by my obsession. I started volunteering at a local shelter, helping women who had been abused by the people they loved. Ironic, I know, the abuser helping the abused. But I was sincere. I was trying to change. I was trying to become the person Owen had always believed I could be. And for a while, it worked. I found a job. I made new friends. I started to feel like maybe, just maybe, I could be okay. And then I woke up. Hashtag chapter 2. The morning of the nightmare. The first thing I noticed was the cold. It seeped into my bones. A familiar chill that made my blood run cold. The second thing I noticed was the darkness. Complete, absolute, suffocating darkness. I tried to sit up, and my wrists caught against something hard. Iron, cold, rusted. The sound of chains clinking echoed in the silence, and my heart stopped. I was in a basement, a damp, dark basement that smelled of mold and desperation. The same basement I had kept Owen in for 3 months. The realization hit me like a physical blow. I started to scream. I screamed until my throat was raw, until I had no voice left. I screamed for help, for mercy, for anyone to hear me. And then I heard it. The sound of footsteps. Slow, deliberate, unhurried. A light flicked on, blinding me. I blinked, trying to adjust my eyes, trying to see who was standing in front of me. It was Owen. He looked different now. He was clean-shaven, his hair neatly trimmed, his clothes expensive and well-tailored. He looked healthy, strong, powerful. He was the man he had always been, the man I had loved so desperately that I had tried to possess him. And he was looking at me with eyes that held no warmth, no affection, no trace of the brother I had once known. "Hello, Lucinda," he said, his voice calm and controlled. "Welcome home." Objective commentary. The observer's voice. When Lucinda told me about the reversal, I was stunned that I had seen patients who had been victimized, who had been trapped and abused by the people they loved. But I had never seen a case where the victim became the aggressor, where the abuser became the abused. I listened as she described the first days of her captivity. How Owen had shackled her wrists and ankles, how he had left her in the dark for hours, how he had forced her to beg for food, for water, for mercy. She was horrified, terrified, and utterly defeated. She had done the same thing to him, and now she was experiencing the same torment. It was a punishment that fit the crime, a justice that was so poetic it was almost cruel. But I didn't rejoice in her suffering that I couldn't, because I knew that this was not a story of justice. It was a story of tragedy. A story of two people who had loved each other too much, who had become so consumed by their obsession that they had lost themselves completely. And I knew that no matter what happened next, there would be no happy ending. Hashtag chapter 3, The Reckoning. I spent 3 weeks in that basement. 3 weeks of darkness, of cold, of isolation. 3 weeks of begging, pleading, screaming. 3 weeks of watching Owen's face appear in the doorway, his expression cold and detached, as he reminded me of everything I had done to him. "Do you remember this?" he asked one day, holding up a heavy steel pipe. The same pipe I had used to break his legs. "I've been keeping it for you. A souvenir." I sobbed. I apologized. I promised to do anything, if he would just let me go. He shook his head. "You don't get to go, Lucinda. You don't get to walk away. You made sure I couldn't leave, and now I'm making sure you can't leave either. We're going to be together, just like you always wanted." He paused, his eyes boring into mine. "But this time, I'm the one in control, and you're going to learn what it feels like to be powerless." The first time he hit me, I didn't fight back. I couldn't. I was too shocked, too terrified, too broken. The blow landed across my face, sending a shock of pain through my skull. I tasted blood. Please, Owen, I begged. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. He hit me again, and again, and again. I lost count of the blows. I lost count of the days. I lost count of everything except the pain and the fear and the overwhelming, suffocating guilt. I had done this to him. I had turned him into this monster. I had broken him, and now he was breaking me. It was exactly what I deserved. Objective commentary. The observer's voice. I visited Lucinda in the hospital after she was rescued. Her brother had been arrested and charged with false imprisonment, assault, and a dozen other crimes. He was facing a long prison sentence, and I was one of the experts called to testify about the psychological damage he had inflicted. But I was also there for Lucinda. She was a victim now, just as much as she had been an abuser. She had been broken in ways that would never fully heal. Dr. Chin, she said, her voice weak and thin. You were right. All those months ago, when you told me I needed to let go of the obsession, that I thought I could control it. I thought I could compartmentalize it, but I couldn't. And now, I'm paying the price. I squeezed her hand. You were wrong, Lucinda, but you were also a victim. Owen's abuse of you doesn't excuse your abuse of him, but it does make you a person in need of help. And I'm going to give you that help. She started crying. Ugly, desperate tears. I don't deserve help. I don't deserve anything. I'm a monster. I shook my head. You are a monster, Lucinda. But you don't have to be. You can choose to change. You can choose to be better. And I will help you do that. It took her years to recover. Years of therapy, of medication, of rebuilding her life from the ashes. She never fully escaped the trauma of her captivity, just as Owen would never fully escape the trauma of his. But she tried. She tried so hard. Hashtag chapter 4. The final confrontation. Objective commentary. The observer's voice. The final confrontation between Lucinda and Owen took place in a courtroom. Owen was on trial for his crimes against her. I was there, watching from the gallery, as they faced each other for the first time since the rescue. Owen was thin, pale, his eyes hollow. He had lost everything, his freedom, his reputation, his future. He was a shell of the man he had once been. Lucinda was also hollow, haunted by the memory of what she had done and what had been done to her. She was a victim, but she was also a perpetrator. And she was struggling to reconcile those two identities. The trial was brutal. The prosecution painted Owen as a monster, a man who had exploited his sister's vulnerability to exact a cruel and sadistic revenge. The defense painted Lucinda as the architect of her own destruction, a woman who had broken her brother and was now reaping the consequences. In the end, Owen was convicted. He was sentenced to 10 years in federal prison. Lucinda stood up in the courtroom, her face pale and drawn. She looked at Owen, and for a moment, I thought I saw something flicker in her eyes. Not love, not hatred, something else. I'm sorry, Owen, she said. I'm sorry for what I did to you. I'm sorry for breaking you. I'm sorry for making you into this. Owen looked at her, and his eyes were cold. You're sorry, he said, his voice flat. You think that makes a difference? You think that changes anything? I know it doesn't, she said. But I'm still sorry, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to make it up to you. You can't, he said. You can never make it up to me. And then he was led away, handcuffed, his future gone. Hashtag chapter 5, the aftermath. Objective commentary, the observer's voice. I sat in my office across from Lucinda. She had been out of the hospital for several months now, living in a halfway house, slowly rebuilding her life. She was still fragile, still haunted, but she was trying. Dr. Chin, she said, I think about Owen every day. I think about what I did to him. I think about what he did to me, and I don't know how to make sense of it. I don't know how to forgive myself. I leaned forward. Lucinda, forgiveness is not a single act. It's a process that takes time, patience, and a willingness to confront the truth. You abused your brother. You broke his body and his spirit. And he, in turn, abused you. That's a tragedy, a terrible, heartbreaking tragedy. She nodded. I know, but I also know that I loved him. I loved him so much that I couldn't let him go. And I still love him. Even after everything, I still love him. I sighed. Love is complicated. Lucinda, IT can be beautiful, but it can also be destructive. Your love for Owen was destructive. IT consumed you, and it destroyed him. You need to learn to love in a different way, in a healthier way. She was quiet for a long moment, and then she spoke. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I'll ever be able to love anyone without wanting to own them, without wanting to control them. I smiled. That's why you're here, Lucinda. To learn, to grow, to become a better person. And I believe that you can. Hashtag epilogue, the ghost in the chains. It has been 5 years since the trial. I have rebuilt my life, piece by piece, from the wreckage of my past. I have a job, a home, friends who care about me. I have a therapist who challenges me, a support system that holds me accountable, and a determination to never let the darkness consume me again. Owen is still in prison. I write to him every month, though he never responds. I send him letters telling him I'm sorry, that I'm trying to change, that I still love him and always will. I don't know if he reads them. I don't know if he cares. But I keep writing because it's the only way I can express the grief and guilt that will never fully leave me. I still have nightmares. I still wake up in the dark, feeling the cold iron around my wrists, hearing the sound of chains clinking in the silence. I still feel the phantom pain of Owen's blows, the echo of his cold eyes as he reminded me of everything I had done. But I am not the same person I was. I am not the monster who broke her brother. I am not the victim who was broken in return. I am someone who is trying to heal. Final objective commentary. The observer's voice. Lucinda Sterling's story is a tragedy. It is a story of obsession and abuse, of love gone wrong, of two people who hurt each other in ways that would never fully heal. But it is also a story of redemption, of a woman who recognized her mistakes and tried to change, of a woman who accepted the consequences of her actions and tried to become better. I have watched her journey from abuser to victim to survivor. I've seen her struggle, fail, and try again. I have seen her confront the darkness within herself and fight to overcome it. She is not a saint. She is not a hero. She is a flawed, complicated, deeply human person who has made terrible choices and suffered terrible consequences. But she is also someone who is trying to be better, and that is worth something. I believe that she will find peace eventually, not because she deserves it, but because she is willing to fight for it. And that is the most heroic thing anyone can do.